50% of the adults in the United States of America are either pre-diabetic or diabetic. Europe will be much the same, and the developing world is catching up fast. This is a tsunami of a health issue which the world faces, and it's caused by a modern lifestyle. Hello, my name is Graham, and I want to talk to you today about what we should and should not eat if we are diabetic. I used to be overweight and also with type 2 diabetes, but I've worked out what to do about it. I've got my weight down to within my healthy BMI range, and I'm in remission as well. It took me some time to work it out, and I've made mistakes along the way, but I've got myself in remission. I can help you do the same. Now, diabetes is caused by metabolism being overwhelmed by sugar. Yeah, that's the long and the short of it. The real problem started about 40, 50 years ago with the rapid rise of manufactured convenience food, which are full of carbohydrates and additives. At the same time, the amount of exercise we all take has dropped dramatically. So that makes the problem worse. It's coming at us from two angles: what we're eating and our lack of exercise. As a species, and we've been on this planet for about 250,000 years, we are designed to be active every day with a diet which is high in natural fats and protein. And that's what we're designed to do. And of course, we're a million miles off nowadays with how we live our lives. We eat too much carbohydrate, much of which is processed in terms of processed foods and using refined carbohydrates, and we just don't do the exercise that we should be taking. So what happens is that this carbohydrate causes our blood sugar to increase rapidly, and a result of which the insulin, which is released by the pancreas, spikes. And that's the crucial thing we should be trying to avoid, is trying to avoid our insulin from spiking. So if that continually is caused to spike as a result of our diet and lack of exercise, well then over time the cells become insulin resistant. In other words, the cells don't respond to the insulin saying, take in the glucose. They become resistant to that. And our blood sugar remains high, and indeed our insulin remains high, and that then goes from insulin resistance into pre-diabetes and then full-blown type 2 diabetes. Now, insulin is a fantastic hormone. It does a great job, but it's struggling now with our modern lifestyles. And it's worth remembering what insulin does. Yes, it causes the glucose to come out of the bloodstream and go into the cells, which is for storage, which is great. But also what it does, it actually tells the body, it signals the body to store fat. It slows the metabolism and it makes us feel hungry. So you can just see that if we have a diet which is high in carbohydrates, cause a problem in the first place of high insulin, and then the insulin doesn't help the problem to go away if we carry on eating a diet like that without taking the exercise. So you can see it drives weight gain and metabolic disease, and if quite frankly it is regardless of the total calorie intake. The insulin is causing the problem once it's high. So insulin control is crucial. That's what it's all about. Counting calories doesn't work. It's got to control the insulin has to be controlled. The hormones run the show, if you like. If you want to lose weight, first of all, you need to control your insulin and get that down under control. And then in time, the weight will come under control as well. It doesn't work the other way around. So it's crucial to control the insulin. That's what we're saying. So what should we eat if we are diabetic? What do we eat? Well, food is broken up into three major food groups, macronutrients they're called: fat, protein, and carbohydrate. They're the three. All foods are one of those three. And the body deals with those foods very differently indeed. And this is why counting calories is old school. It doesn't work. Fat, first of all, fats get a very bad press, and we can't go into today about why they get a bad press, but healthy fats are really good for us. It's not something to be avoided. And all importantly, fat does not spike your insulin. So let's be clear about that. Fat doesn't spike the insulin, it doesn't cause a rise in blood sugar, and it doesn't spike the insulin. So not only are they very healthy, but it doesn't give us any insulin problems as well. Protein, this gets broken down by our systems into amino acids, and in fact if we eat too much protein it becomes glucose, just like carbohydrates. So if we eat modest amounts of protein, the protein our body needs, it causes a small increase in insulin, but hardly a spike. And then finally, the third group is carbohydrate. Carbohydrates, in fact, it's called sugars, that's what they are. And that's what causes our insulin to spike big time. That's the problem. That's the problem in our diets. So, in a simple outline of what we eat, think of it this way. Eat a diet which is high in healthy fats. You know, not all fats are healthy. We don't have time to go to that video, but eat natural healthy fats like oily fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, avocado, nuts, olive oils, etc. Have a diet high in those. Your diet should be a moderate amount of protein in it. Meats, fish and seafood. Obviously some of this protein will have fats, that's fine. The skin of chicken, the fat on beef is absolutely fine to eat. And then finally, as the third group, you want a diet which is low in carbohydrates. And you want to eat unrefined carbohydrates if you are going to eat them. These are the carbohydrates that have what's called a low GI. In other words, they get absorbed into the system slower, so they don't cause so much of a sugar spike. But you want to be avoiding your refined carbohydrates, for example, white flour and sugar, the sugar on a donut or something like that. And if you're trying to, let's be a bit more specific about this, if you're trying to lose weight, not only should your carbohydrates be a low amount of your food intake, they should be a very low amount of your food intake. If you're diabetic, it should be a very, very low amount of your food intake. So high amounts of natural fat, moderate amount of protein, low amounts of carbohydrate. If you're diabetic, very, very low amounts of carbohydrate. Because what I've learnt over the last 2 or 3 years of dealing with diabetes and getting myself out of it is that the control of the insulin is crucial, just absolutely crucial. I've never bothered counting calories. I'm much more interested in what sort of foods I'm eating, because as I said earlier, it's the different food groups have a very different effect on our metabolism. So get your insulin under control and so much else comes into control and your health starts to recover. As I've said already, eat healthy fats. Fats are very good for us. They're very good for us. They make us feel full as well, and they don't spike the insulin. That's really important. And the single biggest thing I did in terms of improving my health was actually to cut right down on wheat. And easy to say, and I've been there and done this, easy to say, but wheat's in everything. It's just in everything we buy, which is in terms of packaged goods from the shops. But that's the most important thing I did, because it has some real problems with it. Not only is it a carbohydrate, so it's full of sugar, but it actually is addictive. It makes us feel bloated, gives us brain fogs. If you do nothing else from watching this video, have a go at cutting out the wheat. It will take a couple of weeks before you start to feel the difference, but you will start to feel the difference. Also, avoid processed foods, because they are packed full of sugar and refined flour, refined white flour. And then finally, avoid foods that say they are light, fat reduced or whatever, something like that, because what they've done, they've taken the fat out, because so many people think that fat is bad for them, and they take the fat out and they sell you something which has got low fat in it, but they've replaced the fat with sugar. That's what they've done. Don't buy these things. Don't buy them. Let me say this to you. Eat natural foods as much as you can. Eat food, fish from the sea, food which has been grown in the ground, or food that's even fed on food that is grown in the ground. You know, all those types of foods don't need labels. And that's a sure sign that something is going to be good for you if you don't need a label. If there's a label on it with an ingredients list as long as your arm, it's a good indication it's just simply processed. And it's probably something you should be avoiding. So in a very simple way, we've got our food groups: high, medium, low, sort of the different food groups. But if you want 3 foods you can keep in your brain to avoid as much as you can do, there are 3. That's grains. Wheat is obviously one of them, but all grains, sugar, and potato. You know, I like all those 3 things. I'm sure you do too, but they are a problem for us. Grains, sugar, and potato. They're the 3 to avoid. Now, I've got for you a free 6-page PDF document on my Facebook group, which you can download, which details all the foods that you can eat by these macronutrient groups. I've just been through them. As I say, it's on my Facebook group, and I'll put a link to it in the description of this video just below. And then one last thing for you: every Monday I have a live event on Zoom covering a different subject to do with diabetes, different issue which we may all be suffering from. It is at 6 p.m. UK time for about 35, 40 minutes, and you can ask any questions you want. I cover a different subject every week, and again I'll put a link to register for that in the notes below. I hope you found this useful. I wish you good health. Talk to you again soon.